baby, the west, the nest,
Grace, you remember how we used to skin the cat on the trees there outside of the house?
Yeah, I sure do.
Skin the cat?
And I remember it very well, too. So when we didn't kill ourselves.
All three of us, huh?
Yep.
Climb up those trees and play skin the cat?
Yeah, those trees a lot.
We were Dad's other three guys.
We used to play with a stepladder as a filling station, you remember that? And we had tin cans for our gas tanks in our cars as we play around.
No, I don't remember that.
The cars, I guess, but...
Can you tell about when you stepped on the oil can then? Is that when you did it?
I don't remember when I stepped on the oil can, but sometime or other I did, and it went through my foot. It's a real sharp one. And I used boric acid or something, I think.
Yeah, Dad used boric acid on our sores.
Yeah, I used it for everything. I know I used it on my arm one time and left a scar for years and years.
Boric acid? No, it wasn't.
Not boric acid.
Carbolic
acid. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, that was the old antiseptic those days, wasn't it?
Yep. I remember me putting that carbolic acid on the sheep when they got sores in their backs or in their fur, too. Those worms would be in it. Do you remember when springtime came and we sat on that old log out in that pond there close to the barn and sang "School is out, vacation's come, now's the time to have some fun. Put your books and slates away, let's be jolly while we know."
I don't remember that
Oh,
one.
I'd forgotten it, but I can just visualize this. Well, every spring was killing to me because the meadowlarks just sang and sang and sang out on the old posts, and I had to sit inside and not enjoy them. I could hardly endure the day. It was just torture to me to sit in this school when they were singing outside.
And Thelma mocking the birds and the old
Screech owl.
screech owl came chasing you all of the house.
It came right to the door, and
It scared us all.
I remember we were glad to get inside the screen door because it sat just outside the screen door on the clothesline post. And that was the last time I tried to mimic a screech owl. One time I remember his dad, he didn't bring things around for us to see very often, but one time he brought a baby killdeer in. Remember that? The thing was the cutest little thing, and he brought it in, let us see it, and then he took it back out and put it out by its mother again, by the barn someplace out there. That I thought was fun. Birds at the home base were one of my favorites, and I don't think there was ever a place in the world that had more birds. I think each year when I go back, if I have a chance to go back on the old home farm, I still like to go and hear those birds because they're the most numerous bunch I've ever heard.
That's what I miss an awful lot, is that bird singing. The cardinals and the wrens.
Yep, and the mockingbirds. That was my very favorite.
We still have those at Lion.
We'd heard a few when we were first in Denver, but not since. We used to couldn't wait till we could take our shoes off and go barefooted, and we had to have temperature up to 70 before we could go barefooted. And one of the greatest experiences on that was when it would rain, we could squish the mud between our toes. Remember that?
Yes, I
that
remember
was
that.
fun.
It was always good to get out of those lung handles, too.
Yeah.
We used to have so much fun early spring walking along the creek and see the muskrats moving in the water. And
The frogs jumping in, I'm
yeah, we watched frogs and the fish later on in the year. And we used to go in fishing with our hands on the water and get real low.
We didn't use our hands. We had an old pole with a string on it and a bent little pin, one of these straight pins. Remember, we used to bend one of those and try to catch fish with those.
Our brothers used to butcher the frogs and we fried frog legs too sometimes. And they'd jump out of the pan almost while they were fried.
We used to do a lot of swimming in that old pool right out there by the barn. There was one thing we were puttering around in that thing an awful lot of our lives while we were
Along
little.
with the cows.
Yes, with the cows. I almost learned to swim when all my cousins ganged up on me once and pulled my head under, and they said, "You gotta do this," and I never did like swimming after that.
Was it your cousins or your
I think
brothers?
the whole family got together and said, "You pull your head under," and I said, "I won't do it," and they did it anyway. But
Did
I
it
was
for you.
scared batty of pulling my head under ever since.
Yeah, I fell in the stream one time. Remember
Oh,
that?
I remember.
Marvin had to dig me out, or maybe both of you. I know.
We were crossing the stream when the water was real high on a branch, and you fell in, and we just about didn't rescue you.
Oh,
That
yes.
was terrifying.
The creek that ran through our place flooded sometimes, I know, in the summertime. It came up out to the barn, which is quite a long ways from the stream.
Had nice big lakes around there. I remember Marvin and I used to be the best dam builders there were, only they'd wash out. We used to build dams to try to keep the stream from running too far. But
Remember the old bloodsuckers that used to stick onto us when we went
Yep.
swimming in the old pond?
I do.
The old snakes,
Still
the
feel.
moccasins that sometimes would be in the pond, and they usually left when we came.
Well, I left when I saw them too.
Well, I don't think we'd have gone swimming very often if we'd left every time
No,
we
my
saw them.
brothers would chase them, but I don't remember I was that brave. I don't know.
We never got to go swim with the boys, though.
No, they went in their
Good.
birthday clothes, I think, when they went, but we wore our dresses. And I remember in the summertime going after the mail, walking after the mail sometimes in the mud after a rain, how that smell of the wild roses and the bindweed.
Oh yeah, their flowers
The
were
flowers
pretty.
were so sweet.
They were very
smelling,
sweet.
how that smell just came up to meet you, I guess.
Hmm. But I sure remember the snakes we used to have to step across once in a while, or the ones that would irritate us no end when they were up getting a bird nest along the road in the
Remember,
bushes.
you remember the army worms? You couldn't walk without getting on those.
Yes, I remember that. We had an influx of them. They were terrible one year.
Had a lot of grasshoppers one year. You know.
Yep, and they wiped the leaves right off the trees. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
They just came in and went zoom.
Hanging in a dark cloud, wasn't it? I
Mhm.
remember that.
They were there. How long do you think they were there?
Oh, I think probably a couple hours, or maybe. Wasn't
that
very
long?
long. Maybe a half a
Maybe
day or
it's per day
something.
or so.
It wasn't very long. They just came in and away they went with them.
Remember the game Fox and Geese? In the snow
Yeah.
we used to play in school?
Sure do.
And then remember the one winter that had ice on the pastures for about a month that we used to take the cars out and put sleds behind it
Yes. That was it.
and slide it all around all over the whole pasture with
They'd
the cars. and
go
the
round
sleds.
in circles and away we'd go. That was exciting, I must admit. But I remember once while Marvin and I were little squirts, we went up on a creek north of us and Marv fell through the ice and I was lucky to get him out. By the time I got him home, he was almost so stiff he could hardly walk. I'll never forget that. Remember one time we had a great big bull snake in our basement?
I remember just getting those pipes around the pump into the washroom once in a while. And I hate snakes ever since.
They were such horrid things for me. I used to dream about them coming down a wall toward me when I'm sleeping even. Ah,
They were just bull snakes, most of them. So
yeah, but they were sure awful.
The dreams I had, I don't know where I ever got the ideas. I used to dream there was tin soldiers in our closet, our bedroom closet. That
You should be in the closet when you were naughty.
I think I was put there when I was naughty.
Yeah, we used to have to go into the closet or else sit in the cellar steps.
Oh, remember the dolls we got, Grace? We each got a doll alike. We have a picture taken with Marv sticking up behind
Oh,
her.
yeah.
He popped up behind us when we were having our pictures taken with our new doll.
We used to like to turn our packages to see if they'd cry.
I remember the first cry dolly I got, though. My brothers operated on it immediately sooner after I got it opened and cut out the mama thing to see how it worked, and that was such a calamity to me that that poor baby operated on immediately. But anyway, we put it back in and sewed it together, and she survived, but I guess I did too.
Well, you're still living anyway.
I remember we used to have packs of dogs that would roam around the neighborhood there, and I guess coyotes too, I don't know. But
Yeah,
anyway,
we used to have coyotes and so on.
Dad always kept a shotgun by the front door because once in a while these dogs would come out and attack our dogs. And I remember one time he grabbed the gun in a hurry and he shot a hole through the wall up right under the telephone beside the door. Instead of getting out in time to get the dogs, he got the wall.
Talking about telephones, I remember how when we had thunderstorms sometimes, the lightning would flash clear across the room from that telephone.
Yes, I remember that.
Remember once we were at Uncle Dan's, I don't know if we were all there, but Mary, when she was here recently, was telling me, she remembered that too, that the lightning hit someplace close and there was a great big ball of fire went from one room clear through the other out through the kitchen. And I remember that so plainly. I don't know how old I was. I wasn't very old. But we used to have big, tall cottonwood trees, and boy, sometimes we'd have arguments and we're rowdy and the lightning would strike near that, which would sure calm us down in a hurry. Remember those days?
Yes, I remember Dad really getting us all together and making us think a little, I think.
Well, I think the lightning made me think quite routinely, too. Dad could do the same thing.
I think he was scared, too.
Yes, I'm sure he was, because it was mighty close to the house sometimes.
Remember the old orchard where we used to have fruit trees, all kind. I'm not sure. I know we had apple trees and peach trees and apricots and things. Didn't we?
We had a couple kinds of pears.
We had several kinds of
we had
peaches.
cherries.
We had cherries. About every kind of fruit there was.
Yeah.
Oh, did I miss that when I came to Colorado.
And then Thelma's experience with the goose.
Yeah, we were climbed up in the tree and we were working hard to get all those delicious apples or something down, and some little dumb goose came down and he was trying to eat it. A whole flock of geese, little babies, and this one made me
Was it just a baby or was it
They were
a
just,
big one?
well, maybe half grown. They were small. I mean, I got so exasperated I threw an apple at the little thing and it just knocked it cuckoo. He wandered around there for quite a while before he came to.
It's really dizzy.
I had a mean hand at throwing things, I guess. One time there was a turkey. We had a Thanksgiving turkey that was gobbling around the yard, and I walked through it and it used to chase me, and it made me exasperated, so I picked up probably a dirt clod or a little rock and threw it at it, and it went down kerplunk. You floated like a balloon. And I almost got down on my knees and begged it to come back to life because I didn't know what we were going to do for Thanksgiving otherwise. He did. He came back to life, but he didn't chase me for a while, I don't believe. I was afraid to throw things after that.
You must have gotten chased by more than one thing.
I did. Oh, my. Remember the Northern Lights? And how I missed them. Oh, they were beautiful.
Yes, I remember the Northern Lights.
Oh, when I slept in that north bedroom there, I'd kneel down on that little low windows we had for hours watching those lights change when they were beautiful. I remember, it probably was when I was a teenager maybe, because I remember we went to a
Yeah, I think we were.
literary meeting, but that one year we had so many, and I'll never forget how gorgeous they were, and I sure miss that. They show up out here, but you have to be out of the city to see them out into the country. I remember I used to help Dad throw chunks from an old wood saw. You remember that old sawmill he had and that he made, and
Yes.
the old
I definitely remember that.
old Ford frame thing that he had cut the blocks up with, and then he had one he'd cut the trees down with. But I don't think I helped on that.
Another one that he made he made boards.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
in the year that you gals worked in Iowa one winter, I helped Dad with that wood. Do a lot of the wood cutting. Throwing those chunks of wood from the saw and going out along the hedge.
Well, one thing I forgot to talk about was the old washing machines. We had an old wood tub, I know, at one time, and I don't remember if it had two tubs with a wringer in between or what, but anyway, we used to wash on the washboard. But anyway, we had these two tubs. We'd wash the clothes in one, and then you'd hand run the clothes through a wringer and put them into the cold water, and then rinse them up and down by hand, and then you'd have to run them back out, maybe into second water, I don't remember, but it was an endless project. Then the way we bleached our clothes was we had an old copper bottom boiler on the 2 burners of the old wood stove, the kitchen range. And we'd get the water boiling, and I suppose put soap in there, and then we'd have to boil these white clothes. And I remember I used to have to stand up on a chair and had a big wooden stick, and we'd stir that stuff and stir it.
There was a stomper, too, that would...
Yeah, I guess there was a stomper that we used part of the time. But I remember we were too short to do it from the floor. We had to get up on a chair and stir those things by the hour, it seemed like. We used to make lye soap the same way. And then we finally ended up graduating to an old gas washer with a little old put motor that finally ran the washer, and that was in the modern day equipment.
Talking about the wash days in the old cook stove, our wash day dinner, and they always was beans, navy beans, because that could cook on the stove all the time while the water was heating and all that.
While the stove was hot, so we didn't waste any.
And then I remember our Sunday morning breakfast was always sweetened cooked rice with milk in it and hard-boiled eggs that we mixed together.
We used to have these old sad irons too. We heated on either on the stove or else the kerosene burners. And then after that, we graduated to a gas burning iron that would have a little tank. We'd put the gas in, and
then you had to pump air into it.
Oh, that's right. I guess you did have to pump air into it. I'd forgotten that. Kind of like the Aladdin lamp, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember Norman used to pump that air into it for us most of the time.
I'd forgotten that. Anyhow, sometimes the flames would kind of blaze out the sides, and it got awfully hot. And then when we finally got the Delco, then we used the electric.
And do you remember our lights? We had the old Delco lights with the batteries in the garage. And
we didn't have that for a long time, though.
No, we just had
the lamps.
Teenagers by the time we had that.
And that had to run every so often to charge up the battery, so we'd have some lights.
When we'd go out at night for quite a while, Mom was so used to letting the old lamp on the table, she'd let this lamp on the table for us in spite of the fact that we had Delco lights.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, she just was in such a habit of doing that.
Yeah, those are lamps. I hate to clean those chimneys and trim those wicks.
And the old...
Fill the kerosene.
The old separator. How I hated to clean that thing when we would milk the cows. And I hated to milk the cows, too, because they'd about knock your head off with their tails in the summertime. And wash that old separator yet, too.
It was kind of fun, though, to squirt the milk in the cat's mouths while we were milking.
That reminds me of another experience about we used to have to feed the calves with a bucket when the little boogers got weaned from their mothers, and once I was feeding one and accidentally hooked the handle of the bucket on the little character's horn, so he was bucking around there, he got hooked on, and he got so scared he ran and crept into the neighbor's pasture, went out the driveway and crept into Tommy Sinclair's pasture. And Tommy had to come down and help get that calf, and he never did let me forget it. Even just recently he remembered that calf.
Now, it wasn't
how I scared it.
It was Tommy Sinclair that owned that pasture.
Yes, he did, yeah. We used to have baby lambs that the sheep wouldn't take care of, and then we'd get to feed them with bottles, and that was such fun. And they'd trail us around like we were their parents, and then when fall came, my dad would have to sell them, which was the most heartbreaking experience. But anyway, that was fun. Remember when Dad used to raise baby chicks and had a
incubator in the basement?
Yeah, incubators in the basement, and we used to have to go down there and turn those eggs.
We did. I remember watching him do it.
I had to help turn them, I remember. And then we'd have to help him box those little old chicks, and he'd send them clear out to Lyman, Colorado.
Oh, did he? I know.
I think it was Blue Miller or somebody bought chicks out there.
For goodness sake.
And I remember those pretty little things.
I remember him raising them and having all those baby chicks. They were cute little things. Chip, 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 chip.
You remember the old blacksmith forge that Dad had?
Oh,
did you help with those things?
Oh, yes. I turned that old thing lots and lots of times.
Oh, I still almost feel a heat on my face from that.
And while he sharpened plowshares.
Yeah, pounded them or something.
And made tools.
He didn't he do something with horseshoes?
Yeah, he
Anything too? Did he make them?
used to put horseshoes on horses too, didn't he? Remember the old thrashing machine that our dad helped own? I think he had some ownership with it anyway.
I remember that thing, how they always had to put planks across the bridge to bring it across the bridge, to bring it over to our place.
It was an
That
old,
was a scary time for me.
but anyway, it was quite a thing. They would drive that around the neighborhood and pull that old steam whistle at everybody's place and let everybody know it's time for harvest. I thought that was an exciting event.
Oh, it was.
It's been exciting and scary. That big old steam engine,
But
I think
then
was
the-
scary to me.
Then the thing that I remember is helping Mom with all the cooking for all the harvesting. When the guys were harvesting, we had to feed, 10, 15 guys at a time when the whole gang got together and went from one place to the other.
I
You know, I
remember,
took lunch out in the field.
that's
too.
what I was going to say.
Oh,
I
sorry.
remember we had to fix lunches to take out in the middle of the forenoon, didn't we? And then again in the afternoon. And I remember
Something-
riding on the combine. That was fun.
Yeah, we were
Right up in the wheat
in the
bin.
bin.
And something cold to drink we used to have to take out a lot. And I remember the first time I drove the old Fords and tractor and pulled the combine. That was quite an occasion when we got the new modern inventions. But then the thing I liked the best of all, I think, was when harvest was through and we had all of us get together for an ice cream feed. And we had Ritz crackers, which were really a treat. We had more of that than we did cakes with that ice cream, with homemade ice cream for celebrating the end of harvest.
I still like crackers with ice cream.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Remember shopping wheat?
Oh, yeah.
That was one thing I never did get good at.
And following along while they were disking or plowing the field was exciting because the
Yeah. Well, that ground was so nice
ground
and
was
moist
just
and warm.
yummy. It was delicious to walk in. And then the gulls would come in and while they were plowing or planting the crops and they'd fly around and boy, that was exciting. Watch all those things.
We had a pony at one time.
His name was Pet.
I remember one time I got on him and I didn't know how to guide him or anything, and he took us out in the middle of the watermelon patch, and I didn't know what to do, so I just sat there and cried until one of the boys came on and got me and rescued me.
I didn't even remember we had a pony.
Her name was Pet. She was a black pony, I think.
And back to the shocks of wheat, at one time we found some whiskey or something.
Oh.
The
Bootleggers.
bootleggers, they'd hide them in the shocks and things like that once in a while.
I'd
I
forgotten
kind of
that.
remember there was somebody that came down our road and always parked out there and left something, and then somebody else would come and pick it up.
They'd hide it in the hedges sometimes, or places like that too. When we lived there at home, of course, we didn't have a bathroom of any kind in the house. Dad always wanted to make one, but we never had one.
We had the little old metal pots we
Yeah.
used to sit in our rooms.
And then we had the path, of course, out to the old toilets, and
At least had board paths. Had board walks to go out.
yeah, I guess we did. Anyway, when it was come washing time, if we wanted to get out of it, we went out there, looked through the old catalogs for ourselves with.
Well, one thing about it was air conditioning. You'd just about freeze up sitting on it, too.
Yeah, we didn't sit there in the wintertime very long. And then emptying that bucket we had upstairs, that was one of the worst things of all.
Especially if anybody was guests in our house and you have to drag those little things out and empty them. I thought that was embarrassing. For our cooling system for our food, we had an old, what's called an ice box. And it was an old wooden thing with one big door that you put big blocks of ice, probably 50 pounds of ice, I suppose, or 25 pounds. I'm not
40.
sure.
You could
40?
get 25, 40, I think.
Anyway, we had this magic delivery service. I think a guy came around, I don't know, it seemed like horse and wagon, but it
Yeah,
couldn't
I
have been
think
that.
so.
I think it was at
They
first.
kept sawdust or something over
Yeah.
that, and then blankets to keep it from
And
thawing.
every few days, I don't remember how long it lasted, he'd have to bring us this ice, and we'd put it in our ice box to keep things cold. That was the miracle of miracles in those days.
But that was the beginning. I mean, for a long time, I don't think we even had that.
And we had that old cistern, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right beside the house, and we'd I don't know, we let the stuff down on a,
Yeah, we let
a
our milk
bucket or
down in
something.
there.
Yeah, bucket and rope.
Cool it down in this old cistern.
And then when the rain came, well, then it would raise up, and then our buckets would tip over and spill the cream or milk into the cistern. And then we had messy milk, water.
Yeah, I forgot those beautiful days.
The cistern was where the rainwater came in, and we used that a lot for washing and things like
Washing our hair and
Yeah.
washing our hands.
We had that into the washroom, and we had a room where we could pump this into it.
Then the old well that we drank from would, in the summertime, get frogs in it sometimes, and then the water would get stinking, and then we'd have to pump all that water out and clean the well out and get the frogs out before we could use that water again.
That was a deep well that the water came in from underneath.
Yeah,
Right.
We had, must have had a spring in it
Yeah,
or
I
something.
think so, probably. It was sure good cold water, though, when we had no frogs in it.
One thing I remember is a day like this is how cold it got in the house. We used to take bricks to warm our feet, and all three of us slept in one was a three-quarter bed, or it wasn't a full width bed anyway, and we laid so tight that we had to get so close together, and
One turned, we all had a turn.
and we used to be just burdened down with covers, and sometimes our breath would freeze on the covers.
I remember that.
But the reason we liked to sleep in Thelma's bed is because she had a new wool blanket that was so lightweight and it was so warm.
Ooh, I remember
remember
somebody
that.
gave me that beautiful blanket, didn't they? I still have it. I remember some of the windstorms we had back there. I remember once the wind blew so hard that blew some windows out in our west upstairs window.
I think we had hail with that, didn't
Yeah, I
we?
believe it did. And they had a tornado, I think, down by
Close by.
Hutch.
I remember we moved to some buildings off the foundations a couple of times.
And I remember we had a dog house out in front of the yard, and that poor little dog, the dog house was rolling over, and poor dog, somebody ran out and rescued him in spite of the wind. You remember that dog that used to, I don't remember if it was Fido or another one, that used to get a hold of the screen door and pull it open and pull the cat through sometimes? We had a hole in the door, and the cat would be so slow trying to get through. One time this dog just pulled the door open and pulled the cat through. He got exasperated at it. And then we had a black cat. We seldom ever had pets in the house, but we had a black cat. And we used to listen to Nashville on Saturday nights with all their beautiful music, and one guy used to have a cat and dog fight with a harmonica, and it sounded just like, and I remember Marv was sitting with that black cat on his leg when this dog and cat fight thing came on the air. That cat grabbed his leg with the claws went in and away he went. Then once when I was little, I remember too, no cat. I was carrying her so carefully and so fast and furiously that the poor thing had her babies while I was carrying her.
I remember that, I think, a little
I
bit.
remember one time Bertha squeezed one too tight.
Well, maybe that's what I remember.
But then the old cats, they didn't like us playing with their babies, and so they'd take them and hide them. Then we'd always go out in the hay mow and look until we found the babies again.
I remember, enjoyed watching the guys when they put the hay in the hay mow with these lifts that they put that slings, is that what they call them? Put them, opened them up and put the hay on them, and pulled that up in the barn and unloaded it, and then going up and they had the pigeons' nests, and sometimes getting the eggs or little pigeons, and we fried them for food.
I didn't remember that, but I remember we used to get the poor little things out of the nest.
Those little pigeons and fry them sometimes, or I did anyway.
Yeah, I think maybe we did. Well, of course, we were desperate for meat. I mean,
All we had was wild rabbits
Yeah.
and chickens.
Well, I sure loved the wild rabbits. I loved
yeah,
them.
we cooked those in our heating stove on the living room. We'd put it on top of there. And
The
Oh,
old heating
Right.
stove that you would bake on one side and freeze on the other.
yep, and you'd have to.
And our bathtubs.
yeah, that's where we took our baths. Behind there, we'd put a curtain across and take our baths in there beside that.
Close the parlor doors into the living room, and then we'd have our bathroom corner.
Poor Dad, one time the curtain fell down when he was there. I remember that.
Well, I don't remember. I don't remember how we took turns. I suppose the littlest one got a bath first, and the last one sure must have had plenty of dirty water.
Family bathtub water.
And in the summertime, we'd carry our bathtubs up to our room and take baths.
Yeah. And then we'd sweat so much that the time we got ourselves dried, why, we'd be wet all over again.
Well, it could be. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I remember in the summer, you'd just be wet all night. You'd lay in front of the window, and especially in that little south room there where I slept in front of the window. And by the time you got cool enough to turn over and be comfortable, then it was time to get up.
And then when it got too terrible hot, we went out and laid out on the grass, remember? Slept on the grass.